Attorney Matthew DePerno has filed his response to defendant's motion to quash discovery in the Antrim County lawsuit relating to the November 2020 election. This is an extremely lengthy document with lots of exhibits and evidence presented, so we're going to go through it line by line, talk about what it means. But who am I? I'm Adam Angeli from the Rescue Michigan Coalition, a grassroots leadership organization dedicated to protecting election integrity in Michigan. And this is a bombshell. It's been a major document that just came out this past Friday, so we're going to go through it and we're going to take a look and see what it says. So let's get right to it. This is the filing right here. It's a response. William Bailey's the plaintiff, and he's just a citizen. Matthew DePerno is the attorney, and it's a lawsuit against Antrim County, and the Secretary of State has joined as an intervener. This is the plaintiff's collective response to defendants and non-party counties' motions to quash and for protective orders, which is the legal way of saying they're resisting what's called discovery, which is where the court orders them to produce evidence relevant to the lawsuit. So there's a table of contents, and it is lengthy. Motions at issue, allegations defendant has engaged in obfuscation and delays to run out the clock. And then it says, plaintiff's investigative team has uncovered the algorithm, a sixth-degree polynomial used in Michigan. That sounds interesting. Then we see there's going to be some discussion relating to various counties. Then there's going to be some discussion about the relevance of subpoenas, hand recounts, addressing the objections of the other side, and the conclusion. So let's see. 17 exhibits. I think actually it's 18, but the 18th is just the resumes of some of these expert witnesses. So let's get right to it. Plaintiff, William Bailey, by and through his attorney, DePerno Law Office, submit the following for his collective response to defendant's joint motion for protective order and the motions to quash subpoena filed by Barry, Livingston, Macomb, and Grand Traverse counties. This brief is collectively because many of the issues are intertwined. It makes more sense to file a combined brief rather than 5 separate briefs that repeat the same concepts and arguments. For the reasons stated herein, plaintiff respectfully requests this court deny defendant's motions and non-party motions, or in the alternative limits the scope of the discovery and subpoenas. So it's just the introduction. They're just saying, here's why we're going to argue that they have to produce this evidence. Motions at issue. Plaintiff has served second, third, and fourth discovery requests on defendants, presumably also a first. Plaintiff has served 8 subpoenas on non-party counties in Michigan. So they're suing Antrim County, but they're also asking 8 other counties to produce evidence. And it's Exhibit 1. And you can see from Exhibit 1 here, what we're talking about is just about everything. All election tapes, all paper ballots, all system logs, the tally server, all election media, including compact flashcards and poll books and USB drives, all election reports and tallies, the PDF files and spreadsheets used in the election, all canvasser paperwork and notes. So we're talking about pretty much everything. So you can imagine why a county might be resisting this, because it's a lot to produce, it's a lot of work, and it's also a lot of risk. Once these documents become public record, then there's a chance that they might find any number of things wrong with it. The public might find any number of things wrong with any of their evidence. So, motions at issue. We already read that. We're now at the bottom of the page. Defendants object to plaintiff's second, third, and fourth discovery requests. They claim the discovery is not relevant, abusive, excessive, oppressive, and done with the clear purpose of imposing an undue burden and expense upon defendants. And this will be up to the judge to decide whether or not what they're asking for is proper or not. So they object to 8 subpoenas served on Barry, Charlevoix, Grand Traverse, Kent, Livingston, Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties for the purpose of a forensic review of the county's election records. Defendants claim there is, quote, no basis in law and fact for these subpoenas. No other objections are presented. This brief argues that those objections must be overruled and their motion denied. Similarly, Barry County, Grand Traverse County, Livingston, Macomb counties have filed separate motions to quash subpoenas. They argue that the subpoenas are not relevant, overly broad, and unduly burdensome. No other objections are presented. This brief argues those objections must be overruled and the motions must be denied. Okay, so now let's get into it. Defendants have engaged in obfuscation and delays to run out the clock. Contrary to their assertions, it is actually defendants who have engaged in a campaign to obfuscate and hide evidence. Almost the entirety of discovery has been consumed with delays and their intent to hinder discovery. Initially, Defendant Benson refused to respond to the first discovery requests. Plaintiff had to file a motion to compel, which was granted. Then Defendant Benson demanded 3 weeks to respond. Then she requested an additional week. Ultimately, she responded by producing documents that were not organized and not responsive. Okay, if they're not responsive, that's going to be a real problem for the court, because not responsive answer essentially is defying discovery orders. Not organized. Well, we'll see what that means in a moment. In fact, Defendant Benson did not produce one single communication with Antrim County. It is hard to imagine that, considering the fraud that occurred in Antrim County, that not one person in Defendant Benson's office made one single cable to Antrim County. Yes, that would be hard to believe. And it would also seem to, you would have to include every generic email that she sent to all counties, which I know from speaking to clerks, the Secretary of State was emailing them before, during, and after the election constantly. Further, there is not one single correspondence, communication, or document produced between Defendant Benson and the Michigan House or Senate concerning Antrim County. It's clear that Defendant Benson's strategy has been to run out the clock on discovery. Now, what clock might this be? It might be relating to the requirements at the federal level. There's federal rules that you have to preserve election records for a given period of months. And what they're arguing is that Defendant Benson is basically filing frivolous motions to make that time expire. This brief will help clarify that these election voting machines, Defendant Benson and Cheryl Guy as the elected clerk of Antrim County, and Dana Nessel are wrong in their press releases and campaign to vilify attorneys. I think there's some grammatical issue with that sentence, but we get the idea. They are wrong on the facts. They are wrong in their false assertion that this was the safest election in history. Exhibit 2. And Exhibit 2 is just a news release from the Secretary of State. I don't know why they needed to include that. There's also a footnote here. This is supported by the recent Court of Claims ruling in which Judge Christopher M. Murray ruled that Defendant Benson violated the Administrative Procedures Act by ignoring matching laws on absentee ballots in the 2020 election. Okay, so this Court of Claims ruling relates to signature matches on absentee ballots. And what Chris Murray ruled was that Jocelyn Benson improperly ordered that essentially all absentee ballots, regardless of their signatures, be counted, except in only the most extreme circumstances. And what Murray ruled was that she did not have the authority to do that because she did not follow the procedure of the Administrative Procedures Act. And that involves having public hearings, there's legislative oversight, there's all different kinds of things that need to be done. And the rulemaking process usually takes months, if not years. This is very important because if they weren't properly counting signatures, that probably was a huge aspect of vote fraud, that ballots that should not have been counted were counted. Because the signature match is a security feature. It's designed to ensure that the person who submits an absentee ballot is actually the voter. And what Benson did, according to the Court of Claims, was relax the rules so much that they were counting ballots that probably should not have been counted because they could not properly verify their signatures. However, that does not necessarily relate to this case, because this case is talking about the Dominion voting machines and whether or not the voting machines were counting the ballots properly. The other case relates to a bad policy that probably did impact the result of the election and certainly impacted the number of absentee ballots that were actually counted. That does not necessarily mean that what's going on in Antrim County relating to the Dominion voting machines was the wrong thing. So it doesn't necessarily support this. But anyway, in order to set the record straight and compel production of the evidence requested, this brief exposes the algorithm and foreign and domestic interference used in Antrim County and the state of Michigan to regulate and shift votes in the 2020 election. That's an extraordinarily powerful statement. Let's see if the evidence backs that up. We reveal that Antrim County purchased USB external motions, I think they mean USB external devices, that allowed their machines to connect to the internet. We revealed that Antrim County had at least one connection through the internet to Taiwan and Germany. We will see. In addition, the court should be aware that defendants have not produced important information. For instance, on March 26, 2021, defendants produced a report written by J. Alex Halderman titled Analysis of the Antrim County, Michigan, November 2020 Election Incident. This report, which casually describes election fraud as an incident, reveals that while defendants have delayed production of information and even argued that they should not be required to produce data, their expert has been in possession of many of the same items plaintiff has requested. This report could not have been completed otherwise. Okay, well, yeah, basically all they're saying is that you need to produce these documents and someone else has these documents, but we already knew they had them, so whatever. Plaintiff's investigative team has uncovered the algorithm, a sixth-degree polynomial used in Michigan. Okay. This already seems a little strange because an algorithm and a polynomial are not the same thing. An algorithm is essentially a sequence of steps that a computer or even a person could execute to achieve some computational purpose. For example, if you go to rescuemichigan.com, an algorithm executes that says, Is the user logged in? If yes, display yada, and if not, display yada. Algorithms are a series of steps that are used to execute a computational process. Polynomial is an algebraic equation. Ax to the 6th plus bx to the 5th plus cx to the 4th plus dx cubed plus ex squared plus fx equals 0. Now, why is that distinction important? It's important because how this polynomial is applied is a question, and I don't think they're going to answer that, but let's see where this goes. To be clear, at least 4 of the so-called battleground states have implemented an algorithm used to regulate and shift votes in the November 2020 elections. And clearly, they're saying there is vote fraud happening because they're saying votes are being shifted. And additionally, votes shouldn't be regulated either, but let's go on. These algorithms are unique to each particular state. In other words, the algorithm used in Michigan does not work across the border in Ohio. Likewise, the algorithm in Ohio does not work in Michigan or Pennsylvania. Similarly, the algorithm in Pennsylvania does not work in Ohio. But make no mistake, they are each determined at the state level to shift votes based on the particular and peculiar demographics of each state. I object to that. My demographics are not peculiar. But all right, let's go ahead. Let's see where this is going. With that said, the algorithm used in Michigan was very hard to discover. The data is particularly challenging because in the fall of 2020, Michigan changed the way it reports data to the qualified voter file before, during, and after the election. Okay. How did they do that? Let's see what they say. Michigan presents data in the QVF in 2 files. 1, in a database of everyone registered to vote, and 2, through a database of ballots received for the entire state. The files contain gigabytes of data because it is every citizen for every election. Interestingly, nothing is in order. The data is deliberately tangled up. Presumably, this is not an accident. The state intentionally makes it difficult for the average person access and uses the data. Okay, there's some typos there. Most likely, our elected officials have never seen their own database. We challenge any elected official in Michigan, including all of the clerks, representatives, senators, and even Defendant Benson, to tell us that they have looked at the actual raw data. Okay, let's look at the raw data, folks. This is the QVF. This is what they're talking about. This is the data files that you get when you ask the Secretary of State to give you a copy of the qualified voter file. And it contains about 8 million records, and this is what they look like. It is essentially a plain text file, and it has the voter data in it, and it comes with a key that tells you how the data is organized. So here is what it says. So for every line in the file, and in my file, the lines are wrapping. You see it says this is line 1, this is line 2, starting at Yvonne Irwin. So all of this is one line. It's just the text is wrapping. And it's saying the first 35 characters are the last name, the next 20 characters are the first name, the next 20 characters are the middle name, and so on and so forth. And that's what the qualified voter file looks like. Export files will be fixed length ASCII format on CD-ROM. Okay, so that's fine. What's wrong with that? These are big files. They're tricky to work with. But well, here we'll move on here. Rather, they pay to access the database through a third-party application or program. You don't actually look at the real data. Indeed, you can't look at this in Excel. Well, that's because it's a big file, but you can just split the files. That's not hard to do. That's what I did. You need to be a programmer to pull out the data. Well, fair enough. I'm a programmer, but yes, you hire somebody. It is a good strategy if you want to hide information. They charge for access. Then they mix it all up so that even if a person gets in, they can't find data. It makes it muddy instead of transparent. Okay, first of all, this is all totally unfair. A qualified voter file, yes, it's a file of 8 million records of voters and then 60 million some records of voter history. And yes, you have to know how to use databases to use it properly, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. The fact that the public can access it means someone who knows what they're doing can use it, and they can't, as long as it's not hidden from the public in a way that the public can't get to it, then it's not hidden. And they mix it all up so that even if a person gets in, they can't find data. Well, folks, a database has a sorting tool. When you go to rescuemichigan.com and you download your voter files, in the 1 second it takes to open it up, guess what the computer does? It sorts the data for you. That's what databases do. This is what the data looks like inside a database. Yes, you take the original file, which is a fixed stream of bits that is actually the first name, last name, and so forth for each voter, and you upload it into a database. And then if you want to sort the database, you click sort. And it'll sort by last name. And that's all there is to it. And here we see, starting with ACK, is the list of voters in Michigan. It's not that complicated. I mean, why are they going, what are they trying to do here, arguing that the data is hard to use, which is all this really is. They throw it all in a pile and they mix it up. That's how the database looks. Well, it looks that way until you sort it. They shouldn't have included this here. The judge is not going to want to read this. They have 47 pages to go here. They've got 17 exhibits. They don't need to be taking time out to whine about how the voter file looks. Nevertheless, after countless hours of work going through the Michigan database, should have hired me, plaintiff's expert Douglas G. Frank, PhD, Exhibit 3, has uncovered the algorithm, a sixth-degree polynomial. This brief explains how it works using the PowerPoint slides from Dr. Frank. Okay, let's look at Dr. Frank. Can I zoom this out so you guys can see better? Yeah, here we go. Sources. Data shown in the graphs are compiled from 3 different databases. Oh, wait, let me go to the top of the file. Okay, 9 Michigan counties collected demographics for populations, registrations, and ballots with statistical confirmation of algorithm use. From Douglas Frank, PhD. Who's Douglas Frank? They attached his resume. Now let's see. Dr. Frank has approximately 60 peer-reviewed publications, including feature and cover articles in leading scientific journals in the world. Microscopy, international credibility, and low energy electron diffraction. Serves electron analytical chemistry. Okay, so he's a chemical engineer. Okay. So not a mathematician or a election expert, but okay. He's a chemist. But you know, I'm a political consultant. I've worked on campaigns and elections, but you know, anyone who's in a different profession knows everything about elections. And I know everything about chemistry. All right, well, it is what it is. Let's go through it. General conclusions. Voter registration is consistently near exceeding county population demographics. There are over 66,000 ballots recorded that are not associated with a registered voter in the October database. Let's see where this goes here. The ability to predict ballot demographics with such remarkable precision, average correlation coefficient R equals 0.997, demonstrates the activity of a regulating algorithm. This confirms, as seen in several other states, that ballots are being harvested at the precinct level, regulated at the county level, and determined at the state level. Okay, hold up a second here. This is not Dominion. This is voter turnout and voter registration. And that's a very different thing. He says it concludes that ballots are being harvested at the precinct level, regulated at the county level. In terms of ballot harvesting is when third parties collect absentee ballots and ostensibly take them to the clerk, where they're then supposed to be counted. Ballot harvesting in Michigan is a felony, except it's not, because Judge Cynthia Stevens legalized it in November 2020. We already knew that ballots were being harvested. But what is this data going to show us? Let's see. There were 66,196 ballots tallied from these counties with a voter ID not found in the October registration database. Well, in Michigan, we had same-day voter registration. So why are you looking at the October registration database? Why don't you look at the election day voter registration database? Antrim is the only county where registrations have dropped since the election. What does that prove? Doesn't say. Total unregistered ballots tallied from the October database. Why aren't you looking at the November database? Okay, what's this? Michigan registration key. A sixth-order polynomial that converts voters in the registration database to ballots. The key works in every county in Michigan. Keys are assigned on a state-by-state basis. Okay. Well, first of all, what's the polynomial? They never actually say. And what is the algorithm? What is it? How is the polynomial being applied? It's saying that you have this curve that's going to be, what is this? What is key values? Product of the key, The key is assigned on a state by state. Okay, so there's a key, but a key is going up and down according to the age of a voter. Okay, so each state has its own key, and there's a correlation. So, okay, let's assume everything that this guy is saying is true. What is this showing? It's showing that somehow an equation could predict how many people would turn out based upon their age. So first of all, this has nothing to do with Dominion, because Dominion tabulates ballots. When you go to vote, you enter your name in the poll book, or you apply to vote, and the poll worker enters your name in the poll book, issues you a ballot, and that's how they determine that you have voted. Or if you vote absentee, when you mail in your ballot, the clerk sees that there's a name and a signature, which they weren't checking, but they should have, and they're assigning the voter as having voted. So you've returned your ballot, you have voted. So if this is true, it's not that Dominion was flipping who turned out, because that's not what Dominion was doing. Dominion was tabulating ballots. So they're saying that somehow the number of ballots received correlates to a 6th-degree polynomial equation. So think about this, folks. They're saying that because the turnout by age correlates mathematically to an equation, it proves that there was ballot harvesting going on. Ballots were being harvested. Okay, let's think about this a little bit. Let's say you're ballot harvesting, you're a Democrat operative, and you're harvesting ballots. Why would you harvest ballots in such a way as to correspond to a mathematical model of voting age? I mean, if you're ballot harvesting, chances are you're trying to maximize votes from young people because they vote Democrat, and elderly people because you're having people vote for them in nursing homes, right? That's how old-fashioned voting fraud occurs. You wouldn't harvest ballots to correspond to a mathematical model of age distribution. It doesn't make any sense. Even if this was happening, why would it be happening? And what does this have to do with Dominion? Okay, so this is already very bizarre. So he says there's a correlation coefficient R that determines how closely the actual data correlates to the modeled data. And R means they correlate precisely, which he says correlations involving human behavior rarely have R values greater than 0.8. Citation needed. How do we know that? Predicting ballots with the registration key in decreasing order by population. And they seem to correlate very closely. 99.9%, 100%. He says, that ain't natural, buddy. Folks, if you're writing a legal document, you really shouldn't use college seminar kind of, appeal to the common sense. That ain't natural, buddy. No, lay it out. What exactly is to be expected and why? Let's have a closer look at each county. Yes, let's. Each graph shows the population by age from the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census, which is not 100% accurate. And from which U.S. Census? Does it say here? Did it say anywhere? I thought it did say somewhere. Here are all these charts. Okay, we'll come back to them in a second. Citizen primer. Okay. Well, this is being submitted to a court, so you really should write for the court, not for the average citizen. Oh, here we go. Population data are from census.gov. Estimates as of July 2019. Okay, so the data is outdated estimates. Got it. Okay. So this is really remarkable. Registrations exceed the population estimates of the outdated data. Okay, well, it'd be nice if instead of showing that there's 125% population registered, they actually showed who was improperly registered. Who's one person in Antrim County who was not properly registered? That would be good hard evidence to use, not mathematical models based on outdated estimates. So he has a polynomial equation that predicts how many ballots should be received from these different age groups. And apparently they track very closely. R equals 0.993. Well, you know, folks, I'm no chemist, but this looks like it's off by more than 0.7% as we look across the chart here. But okay, so they track really closely. And I guess Macomb County tracks perfectly. And that is amazing. That is truly amazing. But what does it show? And again, let's interpret everything that they've done is true and correct. And somehow, amazingly, the actual distribution of voters by age corresponds to a mathematical model. And that, they say, shows ballot harvesting, because they're saying that some kind of algorithm was controlling for turnout. And again, not the tabulation of ballots for Trump versus Biden, turnout. Not what Dominion does. The number of ballots they received from in-person voting and mail-in voting. And that shows, they say, ballot harvesting. And again, I ask, why would ballot harvesting target toward any particular age? Why would they control for age? What would be the benefit to someone committing election fraud to say, we're going to have X number of fraudulent ballots from people age 50 and X number of ballots submitted from people age 51 and age 52 and so on? I mean, this shows something. It's very interesting. But what it doesn't show is anything that Dominion does. Because again, Dominion is tabulating the votes for the individual candidates on the ballots. It's not controlling for turnout. Turnout happens from absentee ballots received in the mail and people showing up to vote on election day. So this is all very, very strange. So let's get back to the let's get back to the filing here. So the plaintiff's expert has uncovered the algorithm, explaining how it works using PowerPoint slides. Okay, we looked at all this. It is not speculative or calculated. It is completely 100% data. Well, the census data is outdated estimates. So there's that. Based on the similarities between the black and red line, people should immediately say, wait a minute. Yes, that's what we just did. We said, wait a minute, and we considered what the data actually means. And let's see here what it says. He concludes, voter registration is consistently near or exceeding county population demographics. That's problematic, but they're relying on census estimates. They need something more scientific than that. There are over 66,000 ballots recorded that are not associated with a registered voter. No, they're not. The ballots are associated with registered voters. If you FOIA the qualified voter file in the election history for November 2020, every single ballot is going to correspond to a registered voter. It's just that number is 66,000 ballots higher than what the census in 2019 estimated the population of those 9 counties to be. The ability to predict ballot demographics with such remarkable precision, and again, they're saying ballot demographics. They're not talking about what Dominion's doing. They're talking about ballots received and ballots counted. It demonstrates the activity of a regulating algorithm. How does an algorithm regulate turnout? Yes, if you're committing ballot harvesting, you are collecting ballots that otherwise might not be collected or might not be legitimate and handing them into the clerk. But that's not an algorithm doing it. That's people doing it. This does not make sense. This confirms, as seen in several other states, that ballots are being harvested. And yes, we know the ballots were harvested. Judge Cynthia Stevens legalized it. And that's wrong. We're not saying that's not wrong. We're not saying ballot fraud didn't occur. We're saying this line of argumentation does not make sense. Because they're now claiming a machine algorithm somehow controlled the real-life collection of absentee ballots and the real-life turnout of voters, which again are not counted by Dominion. They're counted by poll workers. The degree of precision observed confirms that algorithms had access to voting databases and voting activity before, during, and following the... It did not. And by the way, what is the purpose of all this? This is a motion. This is a response to a motion resisting discovery. Why didn't you just leave it right here? Judge, you've signed the subpoenas. They're refusing discovery. They're refusing to provide documents. Compel them to provide these documents. Make negative inferences if they refuse to. Hold them in contempt. End of story. Instead, they're introducing this report, which does not make sense. It raises some interesting questions. If we can follow up and have maybe another study confirm that indeed somehow the voting demographics correlate to an algorithm with amazing accuracy, then that's very interesting. And that means something. But it does not mean that votes were shifted. This isn't looking at votes. This is looking at turnout. These are two different things. Anyway, let's hope things improve. Let's go on here. Where we've seen all this. Antrim County and the algorithm. Dr. Frank first charted the total voting population of 19,222 that could be registered. Wrong. That's a census estimate. The actual number is statistically less because not everyone over 18 is eligible to vote. Nobody under 18 is eligible to vote. And okay, not everyone over 18, right? Okay, so excluding incarcerated felons and foreigners on visas, which should not be in all caps. Defendants have not produced that data, so for purposes of this brief, we'll give them the benefit of charting the entire 18-plus population as to be eligible. Okay, and so yeah, right. Okay, we looked at all this. Importantly, we see at least two spikes on the right side of the graph that rise above the population line. He's talking about this one at age 70, this one at age 80. Of modeled census data that is at least a year old. This is a breadcrumb, a clue that the data is being controlled by something. This is a fact, not speculation, because they exist in every county in every state that has been tested. There's no way that every county in the U.S. would have this same feature. Look, folks, this is honestly really bizarre. I'll give them that. But again, they have not shown how. They haven't even explained a possibility of how a machine controls turnout. By way of analogy, imagine you have a cookie cutter in your kitchen. It has a ding on one side. Every time you use the cookie cutter, the ding would show up in every cookie. There's a remnant that you use the same cookie cutter. Those dings show up in every county. They are not random. And again, it would be interesting to know why somehow a mathematical equation could correspond so closely from census data, old census data, to actual voter turnout. That is highly bizarre. But the explanation they give does not make sense because turnout is not controlled by algorithm. When you go to vote, you sign in and you are recorded as having voted. When you vote by mail, they record your ballot associated with your voter registration. Anyway, all right. Let's see what else we have here, because we've gone through all this. Berry County. Every other county may think they are clean. They are not. Indeed, the key works with Berry County with 99.6% certainty. Footnote. But not everyone in Berry County agrees. The Berry County GOP recently put forth a resolution stating that the citizens of Berry County have lost confidence in future elections while Dominion voting system remains in question and unchecked. Okay, so not everyone in Berry County agrees, not disagrees. The Berry County GOP put forth a resolution. Put forth. That sounds interesting. What does put forth mean? Where's Exhibit 5? I'm on the document Exhibit 5. Exhibits 5 to 10. Okay, here we go. Berry County GOP election integrity resolution. Whereas, therefore be it resolved. Something's missing here. Signature, a date, a seal. Berry County GOP put forth a resolution. Did they adopt the resolution? Doesn't look like they did. Why even have this in here? This is not relevant. Okay, whatever. Moving on. Yeah, this certainty is remarkable. It really is. It means something. But it does not mean a machine controlled how many people voted. I mean, if you want to investigate this, go to rescuemichigan.com, download your voter files, and survey your voters, and find out how many of them actually did vote. We built you tools to do all this stuff, you know. Go to rescuemichigan.com, log in, get your voter files. They're right there. In fact, we even built you a tool where you can select only those that voted in November 2020. Only those that voted absentee. We even built a tool you can pick up the phone and call voters. Make November 2020 election confirmation calls. Call somebody, check them out. Hey, this person voted absentee in November 2020. Hey, did you really vote? Go ahead and find that out. You can research this stuff. We built you the tools. Okay. In the meantime, getting back to this document. Okay. Now we're getting back to the legal arguments here. Relevance of subpoenas. Dominion, Hart, InterCivic, and ES&S Control Group, and Settle. When plaintiffs sent subpoenas, they were specifically targeted to 8 counties. First, there are the 4 biggest counties because we predicted they would yield the highest percentage of correlation to the algorithm key. We were right. The other 4 counties were selected because of demographic location and the election systems they use. Plus, they all experienced more than a 5% shift from Trump to Biden from 2016 to 2020, which is similar in Antrim County. Okay. So whatever. So they're asking for these 8 counties to submit their election data because they would have a high they accurately predicted they would have a high percentage of correlation to the algorithm key. Well, folks, I'm not a lawyer, but some of these counties might object that this was a phishing expedition because they were predicting, they're submitting these documents based on what their predictions were. And this is all, remember, this case is about Dominion. When do we get to talking about Dominion? Okay, right. So it makes sense to test these results against Antrim County to create a baseline comparison. In addition to spoliation infra, that means below, the court should deny the motions to quash because the requested evidence from the Michigan counties will provide specific network and application logs which would provide vote total uploads to verify the accuracy of the reported vote totals in Antrim County. Further, it is necessary to analyze the vote total upload history for additional Michigan counties to determine if Antrim County exhibited anomalous cyber activity and/or third-party election interference. Well, folks, you know, the election history results are all public record. You can get the entire state's election history for $20 from the Secretary of State. I can see why these counties might object to this discovery. But, yeah, well, we'll see how this goes. Plus, by examining these counties, we will be able to verify the date containing the information deleted from Antrim County's EMS. I'm guessing that means election management system on November 4th at 11:03 p.m. The spoliation of evidence alone, infra below, is enough to deny the motions to quash. In addition, each of these counties will provide a reference point that proves 1, the algorithm works across systems and is implemented at the state level by an actual state actor, which affected Antrim County, and 2, each system is vulnerable to the same intrusions which affected Antrim County. Okay. Moreover, plaintiffs' experts require analysis of additional Michigan counties to compare and contrast election data and cyber forensic evidence as it relates to voting equipment used in the November 3rd election to develop complete, fair, and definitive opinions as it relates to the November 3rd election in Antrim County, Michigan. Okay, this is good stuff. Lastly, plaintiffs' experts desire to create control groups as it relates to evidence they are analyzing as it relates to Antrim County. Plaintiffs' experts are exploring the similarities between the Dominion ES&S and HART machines used in the Michigan November 3rd, 2020 election. Physical examination of the voting machines reveals the machines are disguised to appear physically different but share abundant similarities. Due to a series of mergers, acquisitions, and partnership agreements, there appears a loose monopoly exists with the Michigan voting machines and that the voting machine companies share intellectual property. This is a pretty big statement, and it's pretty vague. It might not be supported because these companies are all competitors. This evaluation is necessary for the experts to analyze software, cyber information, and forensic data in addition to Michigan counties to determine the accuracy of Antrim County November 3rd, 2020 election results. James Penrose also explains internet connectivity on both Dominion and ES&S machines. Exhibit 6. Okay, this is kind of interesting. And these machines should never be connected to the internet, and that's why Rescue Michigan's Clean Elections proposal would do away with it. But it says here, the Dominion Voting Systems proposal for Antrim County shows a quote for procurement of wireless transmission capabilities. Good, yeah. And that's in Exhibit 6, and that's good evidence. Yeah, they're showing the proposal for purchasing modems. And what's this? Dominion Voting Machines ICX. In Michigan, the Dominion Voting Machines ICX is used to allow for touchscreen voting for disabled voters. Yes, I've seen these. When I worked at a polling place in Detroit, they had a voter assistance machine. Not one voter used it that day, which was good because we were never trained how to use it. In fact, being a kind of competent computer guy, the site manager, the polling site assessor, asked me to help set up the computer. And I fumbled around with it. It was very tricky, but we got it set up, I think. We don't know because we never used it. Nobody used it. Nobody used it. And in absentee voting, they're not used at all because there's no voting assist machine for absentee ballots. The first IP address was 120.125.201.101. This IP address is registered to the Ministry of Education Computer Center located in Taipei, Taiwan. The second IP address was 62.146.7.95. So this is what they were talking about in the beginning, wasn't it? Scroll up. They mentioned Taiwan and Germany. We revealed that Antrim County had at least one connection to the internet, through the internet, to Taiwan and Germany. Okay, but they're talking about the voter assisting machine that nobody uses. Manufactured in Taiwan, shipped via China Airlines. Okay. This is interesting stuff. Here's an email from the Secretary of State. No, email from Cheryl Holmes of Dominion to other Dominion staff. Congratulations on the success of your election and surviving the primaries. Hope you are well, safe, and catching up on all the things that got set aside. Blah, blah, blah. Modern transmission in this election was terrible in some areas. Failures in timing out due to the weaker 3G signal and cellular network issues meant that some of your precincts weren't able to transmit, but instead brought the cards to tally. We turned off the image saving, which will improve the transmission by a few seconds. We are testing the maximum timeout setting for the receipt of the transmission on the servers to see if that will improve the success rate. We will also be doing some testing in the county to see if there are ways to improve the process. Yeah, in my precinct in Detroit, the machine could not connect. We were in a gym in a school, got a bad signal. And if all this is to show that the machines were connected to the internet, good. Because I believe Dominion lied about that. You know, the hot stuff should be featured more prominently in the filing. But where? Now we're talking about the company. Company is connected to China, according to a news story. Well, Donald Trump is connected to Russia, according to a news story, but that's not usually enough. Weird stuff, folks. All right, let's get back to the document. Where were we? They were talking about Exhibit 6. Here we go. Dominion Voting Systems proposal for County shows a quote for procurement of wireless transmission capabilities. Dominion representatives also confirmed performance issues with wireless transmission. Yeah, we saw that. In addition, a forensic examination of a Dominion ICX touchscreen voting assist machine has shown the existence of Taiwan and Germany-based IP addresses in unallocated space, implying there were international communications via the internet. Does that? Unallocated space. So something was deleted in the system that for whatever reason had a foreign IP address in it. It might suggest, I'm not sure about imply. Okay, so yeah, all this. It'd be nice if DePerno explained why this is relevant to this motion. I guess he's going to in a moment. Let's move on. Cyber Ninjas, great company name. They sound professional. Cyber Ninjas has also prepared a report after review of the Antrim County system. This report includes a multitude of problems found within the system and amount to a gross error by Dominion and Antrim County. Actually, their name aside, this Cyber Ninjas report is actually one of the most interesting things in this filing. This is their cover letter, table of contents, executive summary. Users of the computer have enough access rights and the needed tools to directly modify election results in the database. Official results are generated from this database. The master encryption key utilized to encrypt election results is stored in plain text in the database. That's a basic mistake. All passwords and keys like that need to be encrypted. The encryption key itself is unencrypted. And its value exists both at the county and with election source. Yeah, that's really bad. What else do we have here? I mean, there's a lot here. Hard-coded credentials, failure to use cryptography properly, application of computer accounts are generic and shared among multiple individuals, log levels are such that the system would make it possible to delete files, delete logs, or the similar. And somewhere here they made an interesting point. See if I can find it. Here we go. System administrator utilized for all access. The only user that has been utilized to log into the EMS server machine for the entire history available in the security event logs is the user EMS admin. That means that the EMS admin user is being utilized for normal everyday use of the various applications associated with voting. This is a huge security risk and could easily be utilized to compromise or change the entire vote. Okay, yeah, this is a big point. So on your computer at home, you probably only have one user, and that's you, and it's your computer, so you set yourself up as the administrator, and that's all there is. When you use a computer at work, chances are you have an IT department that creates a username for you, and you do not have administrative access to every single thing on the computer. And what they're saying here is there is only one login, and it's for the sysadmin. So they make the point here The EMS admin user is a full administrator on the machine, in addition to being a full administrator on the Microsoft SQL database utilized to store all election data. Furthermore, the EMS server has the appropriate tools installed to make it simple to manually update any value in the database. This means that regardless of what level a user has within the EMS application, they'd be able to change anything they wanted because they're accessing a computer as an admin. Yeah, this is really interesting stuff, folks. This should be front and center, not buried in the middle. But, okay, there is some good stuff here. Benjamin Cotton has also prepared an affidavit after review of the Antrim County system. He states that he reviewed the forensic image of the Dominion system utilized in the November 2020 election and discovered evidence of internet communications to a number of public and private IP addresses. One connection in particular traced back to the Ministry of Education Computer Center in Taipei. And further, this IP address resolves to a cloud provider in Germany. That must be the same thing they're talking about here. And that was the unallocated data, unallocated space, meaning a deleted file in the voter assist machine. Okay, so that's not good. Of course, Cheryl Guy, the clerk of Antrim County, deleted system files that would allow further review. For this reason, review of other systems in other counties is critical. Well, I hope the judge agrees. We also know that election machines can be hacked and data manipulated. Even if I got a sneeze coming on. Hold on, folks. All right, I'll try to power through it. Even defendant's own expert witness, J. Alex Halderman, says that he can hack an election. This is a story from University of Michigan College of Engineering. Professor Alex Halderman in the New York Times staged a mock election to demonstrate voting machine vulnerability. This is when the narrative was the Russians stole the election. So that's funny. All this stuff went out the window when it was used to the benefit of Democrats. So, okay, so there's all these vulnerabilities. And yeah, this is all fair game. But the question, of course, is, were the machines in November 2020 capable of doing these things? Here we have Eric Coomer, who this article says is Vice President of U.S. Engineering at Dominion, shared anti-Trump posts online. This video is not linked in a footnote, so we can't watch it. It says he explains how to alter votes in a Dominion system. It would be weird for a Dominion employee to explain how to alter votes in his system. I feel like I've seen that video, and I feel like that's not what he said, but I don't know. It'd be nice if they actually included a link that, and a quotation maybe. But okay. We're just going to move on. We're going to keep going. Relevance of subpoenas, spoliation of evidence. On December 4th, 2020, forensic experts obtained images of Antrim County's election management system. Okay, yeah, that is what EMS means. December 14th, ASOG. I don't remember if that was explained what that stood for. Released a report. Oh, that's the Applied Systems Operations Group. Yeah, that one. Antrim, Michigan Forensics Report revised preliminary summary. In that report, they determined that... right, okay, we've seen this before. This was a forensic report that has been challenged by courts, and well, it is what it is. They're just asserting what that report said, and that's all fine, I guess. In plaintiff's first interrogatories to Antrim County, plaintiff asked defendant Antrim County who accessed the EMS on November 4th. Federal law states this information must be preserved, right? Okay. Defendant Antrim County replied without waiving any objection. Connie Wing, election specialist, Antrim County Clerk's Office, accessed the Dominion election management server throughout the day on November 4th. She does not recall the specific times of access. Defendants have never denied that files were deleted, but they always refused to answer or gave very vague and ambiguous answers. But on March 4th, 2021, at a Board of Commissions meeting, Cheryl Guy acknowledged that she directed her staff to delete the data on November 4th, 2020. So here we go. Footnote to the video. Quotation from the video. In this video segment, Commissioner Marcus asked, did you direct or delete any files on the Dominion services? Did you direct on anybody on your staff to do so? In response, Cheryl Guy stated, when you are saying who went in and worked on those files, not what he said, Whether they deleted them, replaced them, changed them, or corrected them, it was my office. I have never gone onto that machine, but it was my staff, and it was because they were doing their job. We truly did not have correct training on the election source new program because we didn't know we had to pull all the cards back, not just the ones we had fixed. So when you are talking about who did it, I did it. My office staff did it under my authority to get those numbers right. It wasn't fraud. It was just doing my job, getting my numbers certified. Commissioner Marcus then responded, sounds like you just admitted to 1, breaking the law by making changes to the thing within the 30-day period, and 2, admitting you deleted files and destroyed the integrity of the election in Antrim County. You admitted to directing your employees to do so. So basically, Antrim County's vote was completely skewed by your office, and you're admitting it. Oof. Yes, that is about what that sounds like. It sounds really, really bad. So the fact remains the files are gone. Cheryl Guy had admitted that she directed her staff to do it. That is a serious problem. Indeed, it may be a crime. In the footnote, it says a person shall not do any of the following: knowingly and intentionally remove, alter, conceal, destroy, or otherwise tamper with evidence to be offered in a present or future official proceeding. Why isn't the AG's office investigating this? Why isn't the AG's office investigating this? Because the AG is a partisan hack, that's why. Instead, the government has argued that nothing happened. Cheryl Guy knowingly destroyed evidence. Failure to preserve evidence is not new in civil litigation. One of the founding, okay, they're going to go on for a while about the importance of preserving evidence, and they make their point. Yes, there is something very bad going on here, totally improper, and especially for litigation where these things have to be preserved. In our case, Antrim County has now admitted that files were deleted based on Cheryl Guy's statement. This was the result of intentional acts, gross negligence, and bad faith. She admitted that she did it. She admitted that she was not properly trained, gross negligence. Nevertheless, she ran a federal and state election. Bad faith. This type of deleted data is analogous to the famous case involving Volkswagen's auto emissions fraud scandal. Okay, well, they're making an analogy. We need to go through all this. We get the idea. Antrim County bad. Antrim County clerk bad. Did bad thing. Improper. Here, the defendants must have known litigation was imminent when they bungled the election on November 3rd, 2020. Certainly, they had been aware of issues related to the destruction of evidence since December 14th, 2020, yet they have done nothing but deny. Attorney General Dana Nessel has started no investigation. She has not called in the Michigan State Police or the FBI. Instead, she continues to push the false narrative and fever dream that this was the safest election in history. The Sixth Circuit has held that a federal court's inherent powers include broad discretion to craft proper sanctions for spoliated evidence. This discretion includes imposing sanctions such as dismissing a case or granting summary judgment for the moving party. Plaintiff is entitled to an adverse inference at trial that all the files destroyed and deleted would have been adverse to the defendants. Right, so in litigation, if the party denies discovery, the court assumes that the discovery would have shown what the other party wants it to show. Because otherwise, why would you hide it? Why would you destroy it? The system files would have shown fraud, internet connections, and data manipulation. Indeed, the adverse inference will eliminate many of the defendant's defenses, including the defense of human error. For that reason alone, plaintiff must be allowed to collect forensic data from other counties, which will show the type of data deleted from Antrim County's EMS. We'll see if the judge agrees with that. They might not. They might limit this to Antrim County. Because they certainly have seen plenty of evidence of wrongdoing in Antrim County, but that doesn't on its own prove wrongdoing in other counties. And as we said, that data that they showed about the correlation of turnout by age, I mean, it's showing something funny, but it's not showing what's going on with Dominion, because Dominion was counting the individual votes from ballots received, not turnout. So anyway, they go on, there's a lot of information. We want to have this. And again, they keep returning to the 6th-degree polynomial. Provide a baseline to understand how fraud occurred in Antrim County. Well, it's showing something, but I think it was a mistake to introduce that 6th-degree polynomial stuff, because the other side's going to argue against that. And they're going to hammer on it. They're going to say, what does this have to do with Dominion? Hand up recount audits. The subpoenas are not an abuse of discovery. Excuse me. This is more talking than I'm used to. Defendants in other counties argue that the subpoenas issued are an abuse of the discovery process. They argue there's no basis in law or fact for the issuance of the aforementioned subpoenas. In their brief, defendants argue very briefly that subpoenas are abusive because plaintiff failed to provide any explanation or justification for the subpoenas and how the information sought to be obtained through the subpoenas is relevant to any of the plaintiff's claims, considering the plaintiff's claims pertain to the November 3rd, 2020 election held in Antrim County and not any other county in Michigan. This initial objection is without merit. There is no requirement in the Michigan court rules that a subpoena must explain or justify itself on its face. All right, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll leave that one alone. But okay, so we're getting to the end here. I think this is where they're making the legal arguments that they need to present all of these counties' evidence. And here is what the actual results were in Antrim County and how different they were. Total votes, original, hand count, net. They overcounted Joe Biden's votes by 1,810 and undercounted Trump's by 5,250. That is wild. Wild. In diagram 2, we can see that in Chestonia Township, for example, Joe Biden received 197 votes. Simultaneously, Trump received 3 votes. In reality, Joe Biden received 93 votes and Donald Trump received 197 votes. This proved there was a direct flip from Jorgensen to Trump to Biden. Yeah, Jorgensen to Trump, Trump to Biden, and Biden to nowhere. Is that the case for these others, though? Jorgensen, 11, Trump, 756. So no. So that's what happened in that township. It's all over the map. And this is, I mean, it is highly bizarre. And the people of Michigan and Antrim County especially are entitled to an explanation, and they're entitled to a forensic investigation on this. And I hope they get it. And then there's this. We must also consider what actually happened at the hand recount on December 15th. As previously reported, a Secretary of State official told 2 of the volunteers to count approximately 138 ballots with the very same signature in Central Lake Township. I have a link to the video. SOS official says, you need to move forward with the audit so we can get the numbers so we can see how many ballots are here. A female counter asks, so when we're done with the audit, there's still the opportunity to challenge the fact that we have multiple ballots with the very same signature? I don't know if challenge is the right word, the Secretary of State official says, but we're challenging, the volunteer says, and gets cut off. The male volunteer says, we'll go ahead and count the ballots moving forward, but we will separate out and count those. There's going to be an asterisk saying these ballots have the same signature. That's amazing stuff, folks. I wish the video actually showed the signatures on it, but it doesn't, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, this is the blockbuster information that should have been front and center in this brief, not the crazy mathematical model of turnout by age. We're looking at Dominion here. This is what's interesting. At no point does the SOS official assure them that the issue of multiple potentially fraudulent ballots will be addressed, but instead demands they count them as if they were all legitimate ballots. Wow. And now they're complaining the audit that Benson performed didn't do all these different things that it was supposed to do. And they probably got a good case here. Antrim County failed to comply with every single benchmark set forth above. According to Benson's own manual, this presents enormous complications and is most likely the reasons that she converted the scheduled audit to the hand recount. In truth, based on the failures to perform the test above and the deletion of vital election records, the Antrim County results are not auditable and decertification is required. Defendants offer no other objections and their motion for a protective order must be denied. Plaintiff's second, third, and fourth discovery requests. Plaintiffs make an overreaching argument that everything requested in the second, third, and fourth discovery requests should not be permitted because it is excessive or abusive, yet they don't explain how. They don't point to any particular interrogatory or identify it by number. The truth is that discovery requests are actually quite tailored and specific. Without identifying any particular request, defendant's motion must fail because it is impossible to respond to the objection and plaintiff is not required to craft the argument for defendants. So what they're making it sound like here, and maybe it's correct, is that in the defendant's response, they basically just said, no, this is too much. We don't want to do this. It's excessive and abusive. Well, what's excessive? What's abusive? They don't say. And so the plaintiffs argue it's not our job to file your brief. Next, defendants claim that discovery seeks confidential information pertaining to IP and MAC addresses, which, if disclosed, could compromise the security and integrity of defendants' cyber systems, including but not limited to election systems. This is an interesting argument because IP and MAC addresses are fully disclosed at the time of purchase of computer equipment. Yeah, that is interesting. Also, by the way, it almost seems to concede that there would be a real problem if someone knew the IP and MAC addresses of their voting machines. And this is all why there shouldn't be any connection to the internet whatsoever. The only reason the machines ostensibly connect to the internet is to report the tabulated results, which they could just call in over the phone if they wanted to. Whenever the election is closed down, the machines print out a tape that tells you the results for the precinct, and they could just read it off. That's all they would have to do. Or open up their own laptop and punch it in that way. Don't have the tabulator report it directly. Anyway, defendants have claimed the voting system is not connected to the internet. John Poulos, the CEO of Dominion, testified before the Michigan Senate on December 15th that, quote, secondly, none of Antrim's tabulators were connected to the internet. Antrim County does not have modems. They do not use modems. No, they're not connected. As I said, they're not connected to the internet. This statement is false. A quote from Dominion shows that Antrim County purchased 17 external wireless modems. Go to Exhibit 17. And yeah, here it is. Right here. Server, firewall, managed switch, wireless modem, 17. In Detroit, where I worked, they had modems. They plugged them in at the end of the night and attempted to connect to the internet to report the results to the county and to the city of Detroit. And they failed to report it to the city. They connected to the county, but not the city. So, yeah, this appears to be a bald-faced lie to the Michigan Senate. Good job, John Poulos. So, all right, folks, we're getting to the end here, and I think we've seen enough. So, overall, there's a lot of interesting evidence here, and I think the best of it was put in the worst spot in the document. If you're crafting a legal brief, you want your best arguments to be the very first and repeated at the end, not buried in the middle. And they've got a real problem with showing what this evidence actually proves, because it's very peculiar, I'll give it that, but it does not relate to the Dominion systems, because these results come from turnout, and turnout is from in-person voting plus absentee ballots received, and those are counted by the clerk, not by the machines. The machines read the ballots and they report how many votes were cast for each candidate on each ballot. The total number of ballots is determined at the polling places by the election inspectors from the people that sign in to vote, and at the clerk's office from people that vote absentee by mail. So that's a problem, and that's a problem that we're going to probably have to address. Plaintiff has no ability to obtain the information other than as requested in the subpoenas. The likelihood of discovering important information is great. Yeah, it would be, but it's also going to be a flood of information, by the way, because they requested every election document for all of the counties, and they may have an issue with the scope there. It's up to the court. So far, this judge has seemed very interested in pursuing this case, so we'll see where it goes. Plaintiff is willing to share in the cost, so they're addressing the cost issue. They're willing to set a deadline. Apparently, the non-party counties have required, they want the plaintiff to articulate the process in which the equipment will be expected, and so they have this statement here. The plaintiff agrees not to damage or alter or compromise the equipment. So that's all well and good. So conclusion, relief requested. Plaintiff respectfully requests this court deny defendant's joint motion for protective order and deny each county's motion to quash, and the alternative limit the scope and grant such other relief as the court deems just and proper. So there it is, folks. That is the Dominion, or that's the DePerno answer to the county's resistance to discovery. And there's some great stuff in here, and there's some not so great stuff in here. So where it goes, we just have to wait and see. We don't know what the judge is going to do. So hope you found this interesting and informative. And if you want to find out more, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe to our channel. The link's going to be in the description to the original documents and to rescuemichigan.com. There's a lot of commentary and analysis on what we can do to fix our election system in Michigan. And there's a lot wrong more than just the voting machines themselves. So be sure you check out rescuemichigan.com. If you want to get involved in saving our state, sign up there. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one.